My name is Janice Smith, and I'm 37 years old. The reservation was for 8:00 p.m. at Meridian, the restaurant my mother had loved since before I was born. I'd spent weeks arranging every detail: white orchids, soft piano music, and a private dining room overlooking the city skyline. Mom was turning 70 tonight. For once, I wanted her to feel celebrated, not just remembered. I arrived early wearing a simple navy dress and pearl earrings. I'd considered something flashier, but decided against it. In my family, attention invited commentary, and commentary always carried judgment. The hostess greeted me with the kind of smile reserved for people who appear out of place in expensive settings. I smiled back, pretending I didn't notice. When Mom appeared in the lobby, her eyes lit up, then just as quickly dimmed. "Oh," she said, looking me over, "you didn't dress up more. It's Meridian." "I am dressed up, Mom." I hugged her gently, careful not to wrinkle her silk blouse. "Happy birthday." She patted my shoulder, distracted already. "Thank you, sweetheart." Her gaze drifted to the entrance. "Is David coming?" I kept my tone even. "No, Mom. Just family tonight." Her smile faltered. He always knew how to celebrate properly. "Of course. My ex-husband, the benchmark of all things proper." Mom smoothed her blouse as if to erase the awkward pause. I looked at her reflection in the glass, her lipstick perfect, her posture still regal despite age. A queen who never quite saw me as part of her court. Mom's disappointment barely had time to settle before Marcus, my brother, swept in. Pressed suit, leased BMW keys flashing in his hand. His wife Jennifer trailed behind, glittering in diamond-like stones that sparkled as fiercely as her judgmental smile. Janice. Marcus nodded like he was acknowledging a junior employee. "Didn't think you could make it. Thought your little office job kept you busy." I requested the evening off. I said, maintaining the kind of politeness that felt like armor. "Mom's birthday is important." Jennifer's laugh was light and cruel. "Well, hopefully you can at least chip in for drinks. We know your budget's tight." I smiled. "I'll manage." Then came Amanda, my sister, all designer perfume and performative excitement. She squealed when she saw the sign. "Oh my God, Meridian Marcus, you shouldn't have." I spoke quietly. "Actually, I made the reservation." They all turned to me. Marcus's brows rose. Amanda blinked, as if she hadn't heard correctly. "You," she said. "Janice, this place is like, what, $300 a person?" "I'm aware." Marcus chuckled without humor. "Come on, Janice. Be serious. You can't afford this." "I made the reservation," I repeated. He waved it off. "Let me talk to the hostess. Probably a mix-up. Don't worry, Jennifer and I will cover it. You can Venmo me $50 later." The hostess smiled politely when we approached. "Good evening. Party of 8 for Smith." "That's us," Marcus said confidently. "I'm Marcus Smith. I made the reservation." She frowned in slightly, checking her tablet. "I have it under Janice Smith." Marcus blinked. "What, are you sure?" "Yes, Miss Smith reserved the private dining room on the 3rd floor." She turned to me with a professional smile. "Right this way." Marcus's jaw tightened. Jennifer's smile faltered. I followed the hostess toward the elevator, feeling the weight of their suspicion behind me. Inside the elevator, the mirrored walls reflected everyone's discomfort. Mom's quiet worry. Jennifer's smugness, cracking Amanda's disbelief. "Private dining room," Jennifer whispered loudly. Janice, seriously. "How are you paying for this?" "I have savings," I said simply. From what Amanda snorted. "You're a secretary." "Administrative assistant," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Barely," Robert, Amanda's husband, muttered. I said nothing. Silence often unsettled them more than any defense. When the doors opened, the air itself seemed to change. The room glowed with candlelight and soft piano notes drifting from hidden speakers. White orchids adorned the center of a long table set with crystal and china. Mom gasped. "Janice, this is beautiful, but it's too much." "It's your 70th birthday," I said. "Nothing is too much." She looked at Marcus, her expression anxious. "Marcus, honey, are you sure about this?" Marcus didn't answer. His eyes were locked on me. Apparently, Janice has been hiding some secret sugar daddy. Marcus' mom hissed, scandalized but not entirely dismissive. What he said defensively. "Look at her. Drives a 10-year-old Honda, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment, shops at Target, and suddenly she's dropping $5,000 on dinner." Mom frowned, her uncertainty cutting deeper than his words. "Maybe she saved up," she offered weakly. Amanda circled the room, touching curtains, running her fingers over the floral arrangements. "This isn't just expensive, it's obscene. Janice, if you're in some kind of trouble..." "I'm not in trouble." I took my seat and smoothed the napkin across my lap. "Can we just enjoy Mom's birthday?" Marcus didn't sit. "Not until you explain this. Did you max out credit cards? Take a loan. I made a reservation. That's all. Jennifer whispered something to Amanda. They both giggled, and my skin burned. A waiter appeared, gliding forward with champagne. Dom Perignon 2008, he announced. Mom's eyes widened. Janice, this bottle alone is $400. Marcus finished glaring. How many did you order? Enough for toasts. Unbelievable, he muttered, but still accepted his glass. I raised mine first, to Mom. 70 years of grace strength and despite us patience. Everyone murmured cheers, but their eyes stayed on me sharp and calculating. The first course arrived seared scallops with truffle foam. Amanda photographed her plate immediately, though I noticed she didn't tag the restaurant on social media. Robert cut into his scallop like a surgeon. So Janice, how's work? Still with that small consulting firm? Yes, it's going well. What exactly do you do there again? Jennifer's tone was syrupy. File papers. Answer phones. I manage client communications and projects. So, secretary work. Marcus popped a scallop into his mouth. $30 a scallop, by the way. Not bad for your little job. Mom sighed. Can we please stop talking about money? It's my birthday. We're just worried about Janice, Amanda said, reaching for my hand with faux concern. This isn't like you. You've been so off since the divorce. I smiled tightly. I'm fine. Are you, though? Marcus leaned in. Because healthy people don't blow their savings on dinner. Maybe he was right. Maybe normal people didn't. But normal had never been a word that belonged to me. Maybe I said quietly, I just wanted to do something special for once. Amanda exchanged a look with Jennifer. That's not special, Janice. It's manic. The waiter returned with the next course lobster tails and saffron risotto. Mom gasped, softly torn between awe and panic. Janice, she whispered, this is too much. I smiled. For you, it's just enough. And as I looked around the table at the glittering glasses, the flickering candles, the family dissecting my life between courses, I felt something cold and certain settle inside me. They still had no idea whose table they were sitting at. The lobster glistened under the amber light, steam curling like whispers of judgment around the table. The others tasted murmured approval, but their eyes stayed on me, calculating every bite as if the butter sauce had been poured directly from my bank account. Mom dabbed her lips delicately. Janice, honey, it's wonderful. But you didn't have to go this far. I wanted to, I said softly. You deserve something beautiful. Amanda's fork clinked against her plate. Beautiful. It's insane. You know how much this tasting menu costs. I do, I said, keeping my voice calm. I looked it up before I booked. Marcus laughed under his breath. She looked it up, she says. Janice, this is $400 a person. Before wine. Jennifer leaned forward, her bracelets jingling like a warning bell. Sweetheart, no one's judging you. We're just worried. You don't make that kind of money. This, she gestured toward the table. This doesn't make sense. The air felt heavy. I noticed the waiter standing by the door, pretending to check his notes. Even the soft piano music couldn't drown out the tension. Marcus set down his fork with a sharp clatter. I can't sit here and watch you self-destruct. You're going to end up broke, and when that happens, Mom will feel obligated to bail you out again. Mom winced. Marcus. No, Mom, someone needs to say it. He turned to me. You've been spiraling since David left. We all saw it. You changed. You act like everything's fine, but then you pull something like this. It's not normal. The mention of my ex-husband made my throat tighten. I'm fine, Marcus. I'm not spiraling. I'm just celebrating Mom's birthday. Amanda's tone softened, but her eyes were sharp. Maybe she's trying to prove something to David, to us. I mean, after the divorce, he got that big promotion, the new wife, the house. Maybe you wanted to show you can still make a statement. I smiled faintly. If I wanted to make a statement, I'd have done it differently. They didn't notice the edge in my voice. They never did. Jennifer laughed lightly. Well, this is definitely a statement. Just not the smart kind. Robert, quiet until now, spoke up. Look, no one's attacking you, Janice. We just don't want you in debt over one dinner. Debt. I repeated the word sour on my tongue. Do you all really think I'd do that? Marcus tilted his head. You tell us. Because unless you won the lottery, there's no way you can afford this. What's next? You'll say you own the place. The comment was meant to sting. Instead, it made me almost smile. Would that really be so impossible? I asked lightly. Marcus snorted. Yes, it would. Mom's brow creased, her tone pleading. Please, can we not fight tonight? This was supposed to be special. It is special, I said, forcing warmth into my voice. Can we please enjoy it? But Marcus wasn't done. He leaned closer, lowering his tone just enough for the rest to hear. You think you're fooling anyone. You maxed out credit cards or took a loan, didn't you? Admit it. I stared at him, the candlelight flickering in his reflection. You sound disappointed at the idea that I didn't fail. He blinked. What does that mean? You've always needed me to be the one struggling. It makes you feel better about your own life. Marcus laughed sharply. That's ridiculous. Is it? I asked. Every time I do something, get a promotion, buy something nice, you find a way to diminish it. You need me to stay small. For a heartbeat, the table fell silent except for the clinking of a spoon. Mom's eyes darted between us, alarmed. Enough, she said softly. Please, Janice, don't make this worse. Don't make this worse. The familiar phrase. I'd heard it all my life whenever I defended myself, whenever I wanted to be seen. A waiter appeared with the next course, roasted duck with wild mushrooms and truffle juice. The aroma filled the air rich and earthy, but the tension made it taste like dust. Amanda cut into her portion, her voice airy but sharp. You have to admit, though, this is a bit much for someone who used to clip coupons. I still do, I said. Jennifer laughed, then caught herself when no one joined in. Mom reached across the table and touched my hand. Her eyes were soft, but the pity in them made my stomach twist. Sweetheart, if you're struggling, if you borrowed from the wrong people, you can tell us. I withdrew my hand gently. Mom, I didn't borrow anything. Then how she whispered, How are you paying for this? I didn't answer. I just took a sip of wine, letting the question hang. Marcus pushed back his chair. You know what? No. I'm not doing this. He stood abruptly, voice rising. This is madness. You're clearly not thinking straight, Janice. You need help. Sit down, I said quietly. I'm going to find the manager and cancel the rest of this circus before you embarrass yourself further. Marcus, please, Mom said, but he was already striding toward the elevator. Jennifer hurried after him, muttering apologies to the waiter. Amanda followed, dragging her teenage son by the wrist. Suddenly, it was just Mom and me, the candles flickering between us. Her voice softened into something that sounded like fear. Honey, tell me the truth. Is this about David? Are you trying to prove something? I shook my head. No, Mom, it's about you. She looked bewildered. Then I don't understand. Maybe you're not supposed to, I murmured. She reached for my hand again, her touch trembling. Janice, you didn't do anything illegal, did you? That cut deeper than I expected. I looked at her, the woman I'd spent my life trying to make proud, and saw only suspicion. No, Mom, I said, I didn't do anything illegal. Before she could respond, the elevator doors opened again. Marcus strode out with a tall man in an impeccable suit, Richard, the general manager. There she is, Marcus said loudly, pointing at me. That's my sister. She's the one who made this ridiculous reservation. Richard's expression was calm, practiced. Yes, sir. I'm aware of Miss Smith's reservation. Well, I'm telling you to cancel it. Send us the bill for what we've eaten. We'll move downstairs and order something reasonable. I'm afraid I can't do that, Sir Richard said smoothly. You're not the guest who made the booking. Marcus's voice rose. I'm trying to save you trouble. Whatever card she gave you is probably maxed out already. The payment has already been processed and approved, Richard replied, his tone cooling. Marcus looked stunned. That's impossible. Run it again. You'll see. I stood slowly. Marcus, stop. You're making a scene. He turned on me, his face flushed with anger. I'm making a scene. You're the one pretending to be rich. The piano music from the speakers continued softly, almost mockingly gentle. Mom looked stricken. Please, both of you. But Marcus wasn't listening. You've lost it, Janice. You're delusional. Richard cleared his throat, voice suddenly sharper. Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. You're disturbing other guests. There are no other guests, Marcus snapped. This is fraud. My sister's committing fraud, and you're helping her. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Marcus, stop. No, he shouted. I wanted to speak to the owner. Now. Richard's eyes flicked toward me for just a heartbeat, just enough for me to know he understood. The owner, he said calmly. Of course. One moment. He stepped aside, pulling out his phone, his expression unreadable. Marcus folded his arms, glaring at me, certain he was about to be vindicated. This, he hissed, is going to be so embarrassing for you when the owner gets here. I met his eyes and smiled faintly. I wouldn't be so sure. The room went still. The sound of clinking glass and quiet piano had faded into a silence so thick it felt alive. Mom's hand trembled around her napkin. Marcus stood near the head of the table, pacing in short, angry bursts. Jennifer whispered frantic things to him, but he ignored her. Across the room, Richard, the manager, ended his brief phone call. When he returned, his calm professionalism felt like a shield cutting through the chaos. The owner will speak with you now, sir, he said. Marcus crossed his arms. Good. Maybe she can help us fix this. Richard inclined his head slightly. She's already here. Marcus frowned. What do you mean she's already here? Richard turned his gaze toward me. His voice was gentle but clear. Miss Smith, would you like to address your brother's concerns? The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment I thought even the candles stopped flickering. Marcus blinked, processing, then laughed incredulously. You're joking, right? No, Sir Richard replied smoothly. Miss Smith is the registered owner of Meridian. She's held full ownership for 4 years. The color drained from Marcus's face. That's not possible. Mom's fork clattered to her plate. Janice. I took a slow breath. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. It's true, Mom. I own Meridian. Amanda stared at me like I'd just confessed to witchcraft. You own this restaurant. And 6 others, Richard added, stepping back respectfully. Miss Smith is the principal owner of the Meridian Group. I report directly to her. For the first time all evening, everyone was completely quiet. Even the teenagers, glued to their phones, until now were frozen mid-scroll. Jennifer's voice broke the silence first. This is a prank. Right. Some kind of social experiment or something. Richard's tone turned crisp. I assure you, ma'am, this is not a prank. I can provide documentation if needed. Amanda sat down slowly, eyes wide. You've been sitting there letting us insult you, lecture you. I wanted to see if anything had changed, I said quietly. If any of you could look at me and just trust that I knew what I was doing. Marcus ran a hand over his face, his composure unraveling. No, you're lying. There's no way. He turned to Richard, his voice rising again. She's paying you to say this isn't she. Richard's polite mask cracked just slightly. Sir, I take offense to that accusation. Mom's voice came out small and trembling. Janice, is this true? Yes, Mom. I met her eyes. After the divorce, I invested the settlement money. I started small, but it grew. I bought Meridian 4 years ago. I just never told anyone. But why, she whispered, why would you keep that from us? Because you wouldn't have believed me. The words hung in the air heavier than anything else said that night. Amanda pressed a hand to her chest. Wait. Meridian Group. That's you. You own Copper and Oak. Saltwater Provisions. Those are yours? I nodded once. And Blueprint, the garden room, and Henrietta's table. We just reopened that one last month. Robert let out a low whistle. That's 7 restaurants. That's half the high-end dining scene in this city. 7 of the best, I said softly, if we're being accurate. Mom's napkin slipped from her lap. I don't understand. You never said anything. I tried, I said. After the divorce, when you kept saying David was the successful one, when I mentioned I'd made some investments, you said I was being defensive. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Oh, so this is our fault. You just secretly become a millionaire and never think to tell your family. I looked at him. Would you have listened, or would you have laughed, just like you did when I told you I was starting a business? Marcus's jaw worked, but no words came out. Mom's voice broke the silence. You bought Meridian for me. I hesitated. Partly. You used to tell me how Dad brought you here for anniversaries, how you couldn't afford it anymore. I wanted you to feel like you still belonged here. Tears filled her eyes. You bought a restaurant so I'd feel like I belonged. I gave a small smile. I bought it because you once said this place made you feel special. I wanted to give that back. Jennifer's phone buzzed on the table. She ignored it, her hands trembling as she scrolled quickly through something. Then she looked up pale. Marcus, she's listed online. Janice Smith, principal owner, Meridian Group Holdings, LLC. She swallowed hard. Estimated valuation, $42 million. Amanda's mouth fell open. 42 million. Robert leaned back in his chair. Guess you were wrong about the credit cards, Marcus. Marcus stared at me, his face unreadable now. Anger, humiliation, disbelief, twisting together. You let us treat you like you were nothing. I didn't let you, I said. You just assumed. And I stopped correcting you. Richard cleared his throat gently. Miss Smith, should I have dessert brought out now? I looked around the table, the shocked faces, the awkward silence. Then I turned back to him. Yes, Richard, please proceed. Marcus stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. No, we're not just pretending everything's fine now, Marcus' mom said weakly. He gestured at me. You sat there and lied to us. You let us humiliate ourselves. I didn't lie, I said calmly. I told you I had savings. You chose not to believe me. Jennifer's voice was small now. This changes everything. I looked at her, then at Marcus. No, it doesn't. Amanda frowned. What do you mean? It doesn't change who I am, I said. It only changes what you think I'm worth. The table fell silent again, broken only by the faint clink of silverware as the servers quietly cleared the plates. Mom wiped at her eyes. Janice, I wish you told me. I would have been proud. I met her gaze. Would you have been... She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, Marcus had nothing to say. The soft piano music resumed, filling the quiet with something that almost felt like relief, Or maybe it was the sound of everything between us finally breaking. No one moved. The air felt heavy, almost sacred, like the moment before a storm breaks. The servers moved quietly around us, pretending not to notice the drama unraveling in the room. Marcus sank back into his chair, his composure cracked wide open. Amanda's eyes darted between him and me, her breath quick and shallow. Richard, ever poised, poured a new round of champagne as though the night were proceeding normally. "Congratulations again, ma'am," he said softly, setting a glass before me. Marcus's voice came low and sharp. "So what now, Janice? You expect us to applaud?" "To bow." "No," I said. "I expect you to eat your dinner." He scoffed. "You think this is funny? You humiliated us. You sat there letting us believe you were pathetic." "I didn't need to let you believe anything I said. You decided that all on your own." The faint tremor in his jaw betrayed him. For years, Marcus had played the role of the golden child, the one who made it. He couldn't comprehend the idea that someone else had succeeded quietly without needing his approval. Amanda's voice trembled. "You really own all those restaurants all this time?" "Yes." Jennifer leaned forward, her tone brittle. "But why the act? The old car, the tiny apartment. You could live anywhere." "I like my apartment," I said simply, "and the car runs fine. I never needed to prove anything." Jennifer's tone softened into disbelief. "You could have been living a whole different life." "I am living the life I want," I said. "Just not the one any of you ever imagined for me." The table went quiet again. Outside the window, the city glowed beneath the night sky, neon reflections flickering across the glass like faint ghosts of the past. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "I feel like I don't even know you." "You do," I said. "You just never listened long enough to see me." She looked down at her plate, her voice breaking. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I said softly. "You all decided who I was years ago. The quiet one, the unambitious one, the divorcee, who should be grateful to have a job at all. You built that version of me, and I let you because fighting it didn't matter anymore." Marcus rubbed his temples. "You sound proud of deceiving us." "I sound tired," I replied. Richard returned quietly with the main course, perfectly seared filet mignon plated with precision. The scent of butter and rosemary filled the air, but no one reached for their forks. He glanced at me, his voice even. "Shall I continue service, Miss Smith?" "Yes, please," I said, keeping my tone neutral. He nodded and stepped back, his presence grounding me. Amanda stared at her plate. "So all those times I talked about our family struggling or asked you for help?" "I offered help," I said. "You just didn't want it unless it came from Marcus." Amanda swallowed hard. "Because we thought you couldn't afford to help." "And now," she hesitated, "now it feels like we never really saw you." Marcus let out a sharp, humorless laugh. She didn't want to be seen. This was all deliberate a test. I turned to him, my expression steady. "No, Marcus. This wasn't a test. It was just me living my life. You turned it into a performance because you couldn't handle the idea that I might be content without your approval." Jennifer spoke quietly. "He's not wrong that this was cruel, though." "Cruel," I repeated, leaning forward slightly. "You all mocked me for ordering champagne. You accused me of borrowing money from criminals. You called me unstable. The truth doesn't feel cruel, it just feels inconvenient." Jennifer flushed, looking down. Mom's voice cracked. "You should have told me, Janice. I would have been proud." "I tried, Mom," I said. "Do you remember last Christmas when you asked why I couldn't find someone successful? I told you I was doing fine on my own. You laughed." Her eyes widened. At Easter, I continued. "When Marcus bragged about his promotion, I said I'd had a good quarter with investments. You changed the subject. On your birthday last year, I started to tell you about the restaurants. You cut me off to ask if I'd remembered to bring the potato salad. Each memory landed like a blow, and I could see the realization slowly dawning in her face." Mom's lips trembled. "I thought you were just trying to make yourself feel better after the divorce." "I was trying to tell you the truth," I said softly. "You just didn't want to hear it." Marcus leaned back, staring at me with something between resentment and awe. "You really think you're better than us now, don't you?" I looked him in the eye. I think I finally stopped needing to prove I wasn't worse. The words hung in the air, cutting through the silence like glass. No one spoke. The candles burned lower, their light catching on crystal glassware, painting faint reflections of everyone's guilt. Mom whispered, "You bought this place because of me." "Yes." She covered her mouth, tears spilling freely now. "All these years I thought you were lost." "I was," I said quietly, "just not in the way you thought." Richard approached again, his tone warm. "Dessert will be ready shortly, Miss Smith." "Thank you, Richard," I said. He gave a small, respectful nod. "And Miss Smith, for what it's worth, I think you handled yourself with grace tonight." Marcus shot him a glare, but Richard ignored it. "Grace," Marcus muttered bitterly. "Is that what you call this?" I met his eyes one last time. "No, Marcus. This isn't grace. It's truth. You just forgot what that looks like. The lights from the city shimmered beyond the glass, the same skyline I'd stared at 1,000 nights while building everything they thought I was incapable of. And now here they were finally seeing me. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. Dessert arrived in silence, a chocolate souffle with sugared petals, still warm, the scent rich and bittersweet. Nobody moved. The candlelight had burned low, flickering against the glass walls, and catching the reflections of faces that looked unfamiliar. Mom's hand trembled as she picked up her spoon. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Everything is beautiful." "Thank you," I said softly. She blinked back tears, her voice barely audible. "You bought all of this, all these restaurants, and never said a word. Why?" "I wanted peace," I said. "And I didn't think peace and honesty could exist in the same room with this family." Amanda's voice cracked. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I looked at her. "When was the last time any of you asked me how I was doing, without turning it into a comparison?" Amanda swallowed, but didn't answer. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his tie loosened, his voice low and bitter. "You think we're the villains here, that we wanted to keep you small." "I think you liked me better when I was small," I said. "It made you feel bigger." He stared at me for a long time, eyes narrowing. "You know what's funny? You act like we never cared. But we did. We worried about you. We just didn't know you were some secret millionaire running a restaurant empire." I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "No, Marcus, you didn't worry. You judged." He bristled. "That's not true." "It is," I said evenly. "Every time I tried to talk about my work, you turned it into a joke. Every time I brought up something I was proud of, you dismissed it as luck. You didn't want me to have ambition because that meant I might outgrow your expectations." Jennifer reached for her wine glass but didn't drink. "Maybe we just didn't understand. You were always so quiet. You never bragged." "I didn't have to," I said. "Real success doesn't need an audience." That landed like a knife. Robert coughed softly, breaking the tension. "You've done incredible things, Janice. Really. We should have seen it." Amanda turned toward him sharply. "Don't pretend you're innocent in this. You laughed too." Robert sighed. We all laughed. Because we assumed. Mom looked down, shame etched into every line on her face. "When your father died, I told myself my children would look out for each other. I thought we did." I met her eyes. We looked at each other, Mom. But we didn't see. She took a trembling breath. "You should have told me sooner. Maybe I could have helped." Helped how I interrupted gently. By warning me not to take risks. By saying I should stay humble. "You already taught me that." It just meant I learned to succeed quietly. Marcus laughed under his breath. "So this was all about proving us wrong." I shook my head. "No, it was about proving myself right." Jennifer was scrolling again on her phone, eyes darting over something. "You were on Forbes' Local," she said suddenly. "There's a feature on women changing the city's dining scene. It's you. You're in it." Amanda leaned forward. "You didn't even tell us." "It wasn't about you," I said. "None of this was." For the first time, Mom's voice rose raw and desperate. "You make it sound like we were strangers, Janice. Like we never loved you." I held her gaze. "You loved the version of me that needed saving. You didn't know what to do with the version that didn't." Her lips trembled. "That's not true." "It's okay," I said softly. "You don't have to defend it. I understand now." The souffle had deflated, but no one cared. The air was thick with everything we'd never said. Resentment, regret, and a fragile, flickering sense of recognition. Marcus broke the silence again, his voice quieter this time. "You know, I used to tell people I was the successful one, the stable one. You were the sentimental one. And now I asked." He met my eyes. "Now I don't know who you are." I smiled faintly. "That makes two of us." Mom wiped her eyes again, her voice trembling. "Can we please just start over?" "I don't know if we can," I admitted. "But we can finish dinner. That's something." Richard returned quietly, clearing plates, his tone professional, but softer than before. "Miss Smith, would you like me to prepare the birthday cake?" "Yes," I said, "please." He nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. Mom looked at me across the flickering table. "You bought a restaurant because of something I said once." I nodded. "You told me Meridian made you feel like you belonged to something grand. After Dad died, you stopped coming because you said it wasn't for people like us anymore. I wanted to change that." Her tears came again, spilling over freely now. "You did all this. For me." "I did it because you deserved to feel like you mattered," I said. "Even when you didn't believe I did." The doors opened, and Richard returned with the cake, a 3-tiered confection of vanilla and orchids, glowing with 70 delicate candles. We sang softly, voices uneven, heavy with everything unspoken. Mom blew out the candles, her wish unspoken but written across her face. No one clapped. No one smiled. But something inside the silence had shifted, fragile, uncertain, but real. As Richard carried the cake away, I looked at my family, really looked. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel smaller in their presence. I just felt done. By the time we left Meridian, the night had gone quiet. The city lights shimmered like 1,000 tiny secrets reflected in the windows. Mom's arm looped through mine as we waited for the valet, her perfume faint and familiar, the same one she'd worn since I was a child. She spoke without looking at me. "Thank you for tonight. It was unforgettable." I smiled faintly. "Happy birthday, Mom." She nodded, her expression tender and uncertain. "We'll talk soon, okay? About everything." "Sure," I said, though the word didn't feel certain. Marcus stood nearby, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. His wife hovered beside him, quiet now, stripped of her earlier confidence. Amanda and Robert were talking softly, their teenagers glued to their phones, as if pretending this entire evening hadn't happened. Marcus finally turned toward me. His voice was quieter, but the sharpness lingered. "So what happens now? You disappear again. Pretend we don't exist." "I never pretended," I said. "I just stopped trying." He flinched. "You make me sound like the villain." "No," I said. "You make yourself sound like that. I just stopped rewriting the story for you." Jennifer's voice trembled slightly. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said. "But you did anyway." The valet pulled up with Marcus's BMW. He reached for the keys, but hesitated, glancing back at me. "You could have told us," he said. "I tried," I replied. "You just never listened long enough to believe me." For a moment, he looked like he wanted to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. Jennifer touched his arm gently, and he turned away. Amanda approached next, her tone small. "I'm sorry for everything. I really am." I nodded. "Thank you." Then Mom turned to me one last time, her eyes soft but heavy with guilt. "You've built something extraordinary, Janice. I just wish I'd known sooner. I wish I'd been the kind of mother you could have told." The ache in her words cut deeper than I expected. "You did the best you could," I said. "We all did." She smiled sadly and pressed a kiss to my cheek before stepping into Marcus's car. I watched as they pulled away, their silhouettes fading into the glow of city traffic. For a long moment, I stood alone under the canopy lights, the faint hum of the city surrounding me. Then I felt a quiet presence at my side. "Richard." He adjusted his jacket, hands clasped behind his back. "Quite an evening." I exhaled a slow breath. That's one way to put it. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I said, then smiled faintly. "For once, I think I actually am." He studied me for a moment. "You could have stopped it sooner. Why let it go that far?" I looked up at the restaurant's sign, Meridian glowing gold against the glass, because I needed to know how deep it went, how much they really saw me. And they didn't. He nodded slowly. "Maybe now they will." "Maybe," I said, though I wasn't sure that mattered anymore. He gave a respectful nod. "Good night, Miss Smith." "Good night, Richard." As he walked back inside, I stood for a moment longer, letting the cool night air fill my lungs. The evening's chaos was behind me now, the accusations, the disbelief, the shock. All that was left was the quiet truth that had always been there. I didn't need their approval to feel whole. I unlocked my 10-year-old Honda, the same one Marcus mocked, and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was worn smooth, familiar beneath my hands. I turned on the engine, the radio humming softly with an old song Dad used to play on long drives home. My phone buzzed. 17 missed calls. 43 unread messages. Marcus, Amanda, Jennifer, even Mom. Apologies, questions, explanations. A flood of words that felt too late. I placed the phone face down on the passenger seat and pulled out of the parking lot. The streets were nearly empty, bathed in the soft orange glow of the city. I drove in silence, the kind that felt less like loneliness and more like peace. At home, my apartment greeted me with its familiar quiet, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the gentle creak of the floorboards. I hung up my coat, poured a glass of water, and sat by the window, overlooking the city skyline. For years, I'd dreamed of this view, not the one outside my window, but the one I saw tonight, my family finally seeing me for who I truly was. And now that they had it, didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. I opened my laptop, the screen casting a soft glow on my face. The dashboards for my restaurants flickered to life. Revenue reports, reservation lists, expansion plans. My world, my creation. The cursor blinked beside a new message from my CFO. "Tomorrow's investor meeting confirmed. Congratulations again, Janice. We're ready for phase 3. I smiled. Tomorrow, there would be meetings, signatures, responsibilities. There would be polite apologies from family awkward lunches, and maybe even attempts to reconnect. But tonight was mine. I leaned back, staring out at the glowing skyline. They finally knew the truth, but the truth didn't change who I was. It only changed what they thought I was worth. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't care. I closed the laptop, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. Peace, I whispered to myself, isn't silence. It's not needing to explain anymore. Outside, the city kept shining bright, indifferent, and utterly alive.